Hello, 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 and welcome to Fit After 40 Women's Fitness and Health Revolution Podcast. I just realized, y'all, that we are in the countdown to our first 100 episodes. Isn't that crazy? Time is a strange construct. It feels like I started this podcast both yesterday and years ago. The truth is, it was years and years ago, but still, 100 episodes, almost. That's shenanigans. And honestly, I would not be doing it if it wasn't for all of you who have given such amazing feedback throughout these last, I think we're at 98 episodes the day this releases. It just is beyond my wildest dreams. And I think, I guess shameless plug, if you haven't left a review or stars or shot me an email or just anything to let me know what you think, but especially those reviews are super duper helpful, right? Because they let women see that this podcast gives you information that's helpful. And if this is something that you've been listening to for the past 98 episodes, or even like 1 or 2 or 3, and you keep coming back, it would mean the world if you take 4 seconds, click that 5 stars, or like 2 minutes and write a review. I read them all. They mean the world. And holy guacamole, still like a little bit shook that we're all the way here. And again, that's all big thanks to y'all caring about learning about your amazing machines. Last weekend, little life update, I did a super duper fun Thriving Through Menopause workshop over at Carpe Diem Studio. It's a yoga studio and wellness center in, well, there's 2. One in Northeast Minneapolis, but we did the Como Avenue one in St. Anthony Park, which is like one of my favorite places in the Twin Cities. It was such a good turnout. The women were amazing. It was supposed to be 90 minutes. It ended up being like 2.5 hours because everyone had great questions and they were sharing their experience of going through menopause. And it was just, it was like my dream come true. Just a bunch of women talking about taking care of their bodies and helping each other find resources. And I am just delighted. If you are interested and in the area, Twin Cities, and you ever want to drop into one of these workshops, shoot me an email, kinsey@fitafter40.info. I don't have like an official wait list or anything for this particular sitch. I don't have like a workshop wait list yet, but let me know and I will keep you I will keep you posted as they come up. They happen every couple, like 2 to 3, sometimes like quarterly, I think. But just such a fun one. It was a slightly different workshop. I run the Menopause and Muscle pretty regularly, but this was the first of its kind where we really just dove into menopause, what's happening in our hormones, common symptoms. There were like over 100 we talked about. It was nuts. Then lifestyle solutions and ways to support ourselves, how to pick 1 or 2 that fit well into your life now, and then our menopause dream team, if I could put together the perfect team of support. So like I said, it was just, those are the moments where I'm like, and just every time I go to Fit After 40, those groups of women, I show up and I just, it reminds me why I do this. It feels like I've arrived every time. I'm like, this is my happy place. This is where I'm supposed to be. So welcome to today's episode. That's kind of the life update I'm going to do because that was just the big exciting one. Today I thought it would be fun to talk about a quick 11 benefits of strength training that you may or may not have considered. Some of these, if you've listened to the podcast before, you'll be like, yep, that makes sense. Even if you've listened to the podcast, there might be somewhere you're like, oh, snap, crackle, and pop. And if you're on the fence about whether or not you should be training or strength training, this is a really good one to listen for, or to rather. One of my biggest goals with the last 98 episodes of this podcast is to help reset the idea of who fitness is for, to really talk about it as something that all humans need for just longevity, for vital aging. I, in the workshop, talked about how it's our golden ticket to a healthy, independent, vital life of our choosing. So getting this strength training piece down, not even perfectly, just starting to dabble in it. It's available to everyone. We all start a little differently because your body, your rules. But here are 11 reasons outside of what we probably expect, which is like strong, right? Strength training makes us strong. Maybe we think of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is like, cool, man. I wish I was that muscle bound. Although ironically, while there is strength and muscle correlation, that's a very specific type of hypertrophy that you got to work and eat very, very strategically for. So I'm just going to jump right in with, I think, one of the ones that is probably the first to come to mind. Number 1 out of our 11 reasons, in no particular order, Number one is that it builds muscle and bone, which is, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon puts it perfectly, muscle is our longevity organ, right? That is going to be the thing that really helps us live that vibrant life. She also, Dr. Gabby Lyon is an outstanding resource. She has her own podcast. She has a book called Forever Strong, and now she has a playbook that goes with it. But she really talks about how the paradigm around how we look at health needs to shift, because right now we're looking more at the obesity epidemic through an adipose or fat tissue lens, when the lens we should be looking at is that we're more and more under-muscled as we continue to evolve as humans. And that's really where we see the heart of metabolic disease across the board. So the other big reason is that as women, well, as humans, we peak our muscle and bone mass around age 30, sometimes a little earlier. And so we already start to see this like little decline, like 0.5 to 1% a year, if we're not doing something to maintain it. In perimenopause alone, women can lose from 18 to 15% of their bone and muscle in perimenopause alone, and then continue to lose it after or in postmenopause. And then we see even sharper decline as we get past the age 65, right? And considering 80% of people with osteoporosis are women, another chronic disease that we're starting to see more and more of as our culture gets more sedentary, our food gets less supportive, we see more and more cases of osteopenia, osteoporosis earlier and earlier as well. These are things we need to be mindful of, because bone and muscle, like we said, are that golden ticket to that healthy, independent future, right? When we start to lose muscle and bone, that is when we start to see that frailty, where we like kind of picture a lot of times that another paradigm we want to shift, right? Where we think of getting older being, we start to see that little hunch forward, get smaller, we move slower. Doesn't have to be that way, right? When we prioritize muscle and bone, and strength training is a huge piece of that, because that is what challenges the adaptation that actually builds muscle and bone. When we prioritize muscle and bone, we can beat that frailty paradigm, because frailty equals illness illness and equals death, right? And not to mention chronic disease down the line. We need a robust system. Muscle and bone are at the heart of that. So that is a huge reason. If that's enough, just turn this podcast off, because for me, that is enough. That's why I do it, right? I just am trying to get that muscle, bone, trying to live in my house with stairs until I'm 80 or whatever, right? That is my big MO. Next up, when we strength train, it creates a higher metabolic rate. Higher resting metabolic rate. Sometimes I feel like this podcast is just full of alliteration. So, couple different reasons, right? Muscle, again, this ties to muscle. Muscle is our most calorically expensive tissue. So the more muscle we have on our frame, the more calories we burn at rest. We just use more energy at rest. So when we strength train and we put muscle on our frame, we just have a higher resting metabolic rate. Then pair that with when we're actually strength training and we start to see that metabolism go up even more 24 to 48 hours after that workout itself. Alongside of that, we also see a reduction in visceral fat when we are strength training. And this is really important. We're not going to spend too much time on this. We've talked about it before. Visceral fat is that metabolically active fat. It can release an inflammatory hormone called cytokines that can create systemic inflammation and chronic disease up and down our kinetic chain. When we become perimenopausal and then into postmenopausal, as we start to see that drop in estradiol, women start to store fat differently on their body. When we have in our reproductive years, our body does its best to keep the womb and ovaries safe and free of adipose tissue, so it stores it in the butt, in the thighs, and in the hips. As we start to lose estradiol, as we become less fertile, as we run out of viable follicles, the body goes, okay, we don't necessarily need those organs as much, so we start to store tissue a little bit more similarly to a man at the middle and viscerally. So when we're in the butt and hips, generally that's that subcutaneous. You can like pinch it, right? That's right under the skin fat. Visceral fat is stored within our organs, and it's that hard where you can't pinch it really. It's hard and in the organs, and it's a dangerous type of fat. So unfortunately, this isn't like a spot reduction, and it's not about just moving more and eating less. We have to target it with strength training and a nutrition plan that is supportive. So not less, supportive, and movement throughout the day. This also ties into number 3, which is Strength training helps with blood sugar regulation. Again, this is tying back to that muscle piece. Another thing we talk about all the time, but muscle is a glucose sink. Another thing that happens, especially in perimenopause, as we start to lose estradiol, is that we see a drop in insulin sensitivity. So we become more insulin resistant, thinking like pre-diabetic, even seeing cases of type 2 diabetes develop in perimenopause. And then as we go through post, we continue to see that drop off in that insulin sensitivity and we become more and more insulin resistant. Blood sugar regulation, I believe, is getting talked about more. I think there, at least in my like sector of the internet, I see things like insulin and blood sugar regulation popping up. Like 5 years ago, the only person I ever heard talking about it was Erin Holt, and she would talk about why blood sugar regulation was important, and I was like, oh my God, and then I'd go off and forget about it. And now it's, to me, like such a huge piece of the puzzle when we're looking at supporting our body while we're aging towards this vital extended health span, right? Because not only are a lot of the symptoms we experience in perimenopause and just like in reproductive years, like symptoms around PMS and different sort of inflammatory responses, headaches, etc., are tied to blood sugar dysregulation. So a lot of us are already struggling with blood sugar regulation. We might just not know it. The cool thing about muscle and strength training, well, let's start with muscle, which we get from strength training, right? We need to strength train in order to adapt or cause the adaptation that builds muscle. When we are more insulin resistant, so when our body doesn't have the ability to clear glucose from the blood so easily, our muscle can actually use sugar out of the blood independent of those insulin receptors. So it can clear sugar out of the blood and then it uses it. It doesn't get re-released into the blood to continue wreaking havoc. It actually goes towards fueling our muscles, and then the muscle is empty and we need to uptake more glucose, which allows us over time, as we're clearing and sort of stabilizing through that blood sugar, for us to become a little bit more insulin sensitive over time. The other cool thing is with strength training, just like we were talking about seeing that increase in metabolic resting rate, or resting metabolic rate, where we see that like after workout energy burn sort of go up a little bit. Same with blood sugar regulation, where we actually will continue to clear glucose out of the bloodstream for 24 to 48 hours after we do a strength training session. So this is incredibly important. So many different things are tied to blood sugar or dysregulation. It's definitely something worth looking into. Brandy Sheehan, who I've had on here a lot, if you check out her website, she talks a lot about metabolic dysfunction, specifically around, this is tied deeply to blood sugar dysregulation or insulin resistance. That's a huge piece of that metabolic dysfunction. So she's got some symptoms listed. So if you're like, or if you just Google like symptoms of blood sugar dysregulation or low blood sugar, high blood sugar, right? So muscle and strength training help us to stabilize our blood sugar, which down the line creates less inflammation. Blood sugar regulation helps, again, sort of mitigate and ease symptoms of perimenopause, PMS, etc., as well as lower the chances of chronic disease pretty much across the board, right? Next up, number 4. This one I think surprises people, and I did a whole podcast on why are you really in pain? But when we strength train, when we strength train the right way, let me caveat, we generally tend to feel less chronic pain because couple different reasons, right? We're starting to actually move our body. So a lot of times chronic pain, back, knee, shoulder, neck, is because we're taking a skeleton that is meant to be very mobile, standing, walking, twisting, and we are sitting it into a chair and keeping it in a frontward sloped position. So we are taking something that is supposed to be moving and we're taking all the movement out. And as a result, our body creates these compensation patterns all up and down our kinetic chain. As a result, we get to see that we see that chronic pain start to develop. Weakened muscles that are supposed to be helping, overactive muscles that pull things out of alignment, things aren't firing, so other tissues have to take over. It just ends up affecting everything. So when we are strength training, again, the right way, one of the very first things is that we're starting to move our body. We're starting to train those muscles to fire, especially when we're thinking like glutes, low core, things that sort of sit off during a typical work day. We're starting to bring them back online to build that support infrastructure into our day. Not to mention that as we're strength training, ideally we're working in things like mobility, stability at the joint. We're looking at things like isometrics, slow eccentrics, where we're lowering, extending the muscle. That's going to be really helpful at at ligaments and tendons of our joints. This is another really interesting one. Dr. Stephanie Estima has been on one for tendon and ligament health, and I'm obsessed. I referenced one of her podcasts recently, but definitely worth checking out. But ideally, as we're doing this, right, because when we're strengthening and building muscle and bone, we're also strengthening tendons and ligaments. The cool thing with all of these tissues is that it is never too late to get started. The important thing to remember is muscle adapts much quicker than bone, tendons, and ligaments. So we can start like pushing more and more weight, but we want to slow down, especially early on, because we want to give a good runway for those tendons, ligaments to come on board to really support as well. The other thing is that we're working into more and more range of motion. That's one of my favorite things. One very common range of motion pattern that I see in Fit After 40 that's very fun to see come back online is our overhead range of motion when we're stretching the arms overhead. A lot of times because we sit in that sort of like boiled cashew look, right, where the shoulders are coming forward, we have a very tight muscles pulling our chest and shoulders forward, and the muscles along the back are lengthened. We generally too have like some elevation in the shoulders. So when people go to lift their arms over their head, they either can't get the arms all the way long or they can't keep the shoulders down from their ear. And over time, we're able to start building that range of motion. So that is one that almost every, like I was trying to think if there's anyone who's after 3 months unable. I think at this point, everyone who's completed the 3 months has access to overhead mobility. And this is incredible because there are people who, unless there's like a case of frozen shoulder, right? If there's something structurally that's impinging it, if it's just muscular, every single one of the clients so far has been able to rebuild and retain that overhead mobility, which is amazing. And that's just one example, right? We are also talking about range of motion at the hips, one of our most mobile joints that when we're sitting doesn't have a lot of mobility. So a lot of times those locked hips can actually show up as knee pain, as low back pain. So that's one that I love to talk about because a lot of times people stay away, especially as we get older. We shy away from strength training because we're worried we're going to get injured, which again, like I don't want you just going out and lifting heavy weights unassisted and without learning how to do it. We have to learn the foundations. But when we are learning it and doing it the right way, learning form, getting in control of our core, starting to build that stability, we actually see that a lot of that pain starts to diminish, which is amazing. Okay, next up, brain health. This one is cool. There are a lot of studies now that especially correlate strength training and brain health, even like even combating things like Alzheimer's, right? So again, I would imagine that a lot of this correlation has to do with blood sugar regulation, right? Because Alzheimer's is now getting referred to as type 3 diabetes because of insulin resistance in the brain. Also, we're going to talk about this too, but it just gets more, it can flush blood through the system, it improves moods, it can lift, or it is a hormonal endocrine system as well. So there's just so many different things at play when we're strength training. Muscle is this, like I said, the longevity organ. There's a lot of amazing things. But brain health, baby, it's a fun one. Deep dive, look up brain health and strength training. And if you're like, I've been trying, that's one that I have a couple people who have parents, for example, who have Alzheimer's, and that's something that's always on their mind. So they're really mindful about it when they're eating. They're really mindful about it with supplements, but they've never considered that strength training can actually be a benefit too for really promoting brain health, cognitive health across the board. Improved memory, that's a big one that they see actually. I can't remember if it's causation because they're in studies, but I'm just going to be safe because I don't have the studies in front of me and say it correlation. And tying into that, number 6, strength training improves moods and self-esteem. There was a publication in the JAMA Psychiatry where it did a study, and I forget exactly how many people, but people reported across the board when they were strength training. This is people who have never strength trained before, both having better sleep after strength training consistently, not every single day, right? Just consistently, as well as lessening depression. So they felt better. Again, neurotransmitters are released. We see this rise in endorphins. And the self-esteem kind of, I think there's this mindset piece that goes with it too, where we're doing something good for ourselves. And as soon as we opt to take care of ourselves, which is something that I think in modern day, it's of the mentality that I have so much to do that this is like a bonus if I can get other things done. We put our own health kind of on a back burner after we take care of work, our kids, our family, the house, etc. And that means that a lot of times it never gets touched, right? When the reality is, if we are able to take care of ourselves first, it opens up this whole other platform of energy, of feeling good, of learning to set boundaries. It also is just hard to it's hard to feel bummed when you continue to see yourself getting stronger. That's one thing that I love about strength training, is that there is a very tangible progression, especially early on, where maybe you're starting off with chest pressing 5 pounds and 2 months in, suddenly you're chest pressing like 20 pounds. It feels amazing, doing things that you never thought you'd be able to do. And that just, again, snowballs into a whole other side effect of things, of just feeling good about yourself. I love hearing women come and be like, yeah, I just feel like stronger in my day. I just feel better in my body. It's the best. Tying in also better quality of life, right? So if we think of everything we just named, it's hard for life not to get better. If we're regulating our blood sugar, we have stronger bones and muscles, so we're able to do more things in our life. We're feeling less pain, we're sleeping better, we're feeling less depressed. That begets a pretty lovely life. That doesn't mean that like you start strength training and suddenly the world is sunshine and roses. The world still happens. It just means that we have developed a healthier system. Everything is harder when our system is more inflamed and we're sick, right? Everything is harder. Everything's harder when we're tired. Everything is harder when we're depressed and anxious. As someone who has dealt with generalized anxiety for a long time, I can tell you it is hard just to function, right? So when we start to feel better, life gets a little bit easier. Even the things that really suck, we have what's now developed as also resilience. So we're feeling better, and strength training trains resilience. You're constantly every session, asking your body to do something that's hard. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're killing ourselves, right? I don't ever want people walking away feeling like they've been absolutely brutalized. But split squat with a 5-second pause, she's a boo nanny. That sucks, but it's good for us in so many ways. Yay for joints, yay for muscle endurance, yay for strength, and yay for mental resilience, because you're doing something that's hard, and then you're proving to yourself that you survived it, that you got through it. And that on the other side, you actually feel better. You feel good. You feel supported. You feel proud of yourself. Not to mention, this really opens up aging with independence. There's that whole living in the house with stairs, right? If it's uncomfortable to go upstairs at age 50, imagine what it's going to feel like at 80 when we don't have access to our knee, when our back is thrown out constantly, when we're not able to lift our bags up the stairs, right? That's that frailty epidemic, paradigm, what have you, that I'm looking to reverse for us. This is the I have already quoted it on the pod, but I love this one. Someone, I forget who, said, imagine how you want to live at 80 and now start living like that today, right? So don't wait on these things. We've already all waited long enough. It's time to take that first step. You are worth it, because if you get started today, imagine how amazing you're going to feel in 30 days, in 3 months, in 3 years, in 30 years. That's how we get started. 8. This kind of ties into with better quality of Betty. Hi, how you doing? Better quality of life. And this helps reduce fall risk. Again, couple of different reasons, right? If we're building up the right way, especially at Fit After 40, the first month, a lot of what we work on is balance and stabilization, right? We're starting to actually balance all the stabilizers, and that starts as simply as, can I balance on one foot? Can I balance on one foot with good form? With my feet pointed straight ahead, with my knee up and in front of my hip, with my hip not hiking, my hips are even, right? Not arching in my low back. Starts just super basic, and then it builds into things like reverse lunge, right? So we start to build up that balance. Also reaction time. We're training our muscles, and the heavier we go down the line, as we've been doing it for years and years and years, when we are lifting heavy weight, even though we're moving slowly, our muscles are firing. We are rapidly firing, right? It's moving slow because it's heavy, but our power is kicking up. And when we're talking about fall risk, if we could catch ourselves before we fall, that's that reaction time, right? If we're more balanced, so we're less likely to fall, bada bing, bada boom. If we're building bones and muscles so that when we fall and catch ourselves, we don't break our hip, we don't break our wrist, we don't break our shoulder, that's better quality of life. The fall stats from the CDC around, especially falls for older adults, another list of those stats that are harrowing, and we've talked about it before here, but one that always sticks out to me is that 20 to 30% of people who fall and break their hip after the age of, I think it's 50, but let's just even say 65, within the year they die. So falls are the number one leading cause of injury for older adults. It's just one of those things. Falls are also just inevitable, right? Like, I fall all the time, but the catch is it's different falling and like bruising yourself and being like, LOL, I'm so clumsy, and then falling and ending up in the hospital, right? So that is what we are looking for. Again, this is like the benefits of living, or how do we make our life full, robust, exciting to live, especially if one of your goals as you enter retirement is to travel, right? Is to scale mountains or even just hike or like go birding. These are things that if we trip and we're in a foreign country and we break something, yikes. Or if we can't even go in the first place because, just so you get what I'm saying, right? Like, this is bulletproofing your body so that you can decide what you want to do. You have permission and options to do whatever you want to do. Huzzah. 9, it helps make daily tasks easier. Now, this one, you might just be like, not very sexy, Kinsey, not very sexy, until those 3 to 5 trips from the car become 1 after the grocery store. But for real, right? These are the cool ones that are some of my favorite to hear from clients. I have so many who, especially in the first 30 to 60 days, the things they share with me are things they're able to do in their life that they weren't able to. Whether it's they have stamina to keep up with people they're with, or it's that they just feel stronger, like I said, carrying things to and from their cars. We have a hockey mom, and she was like, yeah, I single-handedly opened the door to my car and grabbed all the hockey equipment in one hand and then like was shutting the other one and was able to like bend down and pick something up, carrying like 70 pounds of equipment. Like, just all these things that she's like, I couldn't do that before. Or one time I did it and I hurt my neck. And then I've spoken of her all the time, a woman who's in her 70s, and she does cleanups on the Mississippi River once a week. She's like, every week I can carry more and more trash up that hill. It's just like the ways that she's another person who fell, but we had been training for about 8 months, and when she fell, she was already pretty active, so I think she had pretty good foundation of bone, but the doctors were like, yeah, it's probably going to take like 6 weeks to 6 months. She recovered from that sprain in like 4 weeks. It was amazing. Again, I'm not like saying that's how it's always going to be, but it's a pretty cool thing to see. But just life gets easier, right? We're not running out of breath so easy. We're able to do things because we're not in pain. We're able to travel. A woman shared with me that she went on a 3-hour car drive to a work retreat and normally is in like crazy back pain, but she did some of our hip mobilizing things that we do in class, and she's like, and it made me feel so much better, right? This is amazing when we are able to do our day-to-day tasks easier and easier. And I like to call this one out because I think it happens for all of us, whether we notice it or not. And that's a big thing. I think a lot of us are moving so fast through our day that we don't even realize that now, like, I'm holding 2 kids in both arms and like using my foot to like pick something off the floor and hand to just like pick the keys up with my toes and like passing it to my hand without dropping the baby. Like, our bodies are amazingly capable, and strength training allows them to really explore their capacity in a whole new way. Gardening, man, hauling mulch, bending over for hours and not feeling in pain, incredible. Okay, cardiovascular health. This was a pretty crazy study. There was an Iowa State University study that showed there was, with strength training, a 40 to 70% decreased risk in heart attack or stroke with as little as an hour of strength training a week. That one kind of blew my mind, Grapes, and definitely, like, let's keep looking for studies on it. But there are tons of studies that show that strength training is incredibly good for our cardiovascular health. And this is huge. We want heart protectant activities, especially as we age. Because remember, my gorgeous friends, when we go into our postmenopausal years, heart disease, heart attack, heart conditions are the number 1 cause of death for women after the age of 50. So we want to take care of that heart. And then number 11, and this one, it's interesting because I think it's interesting. I was bullet pointing these yesterday, and I was driving to work this morning, and this one hit me as my big thing, besides like, I'm trying to get like badass strong, right? Like that's my goal right now. But my number 11, and what has been huge for my personal journey in fitness, where when I started in fitness back in the day, even like when I started in yoga, when I was, gosh, when was that? 2010? Question mark? 2007? Anyway, whatever. Back when I started yoga, my whole goal with moving my body was to shrink it. Right? In college, when I would run on the treadmill, it would be to burn calories. When I did hot yoga, it was to burn calories. When I started doing HIIT classes, it was to burn calories and get smaller. I was constantly trying to shrink my body for all of my 20s. And if I'm being honest, like probably still thinking about it into the beginning of my 30s, just a little bit differently. When I fully shifted to focusing on lifting for strength, and that started around like 5 or 6 years ago. Five or 6 years ago. Suddenly my focus for the first time in almost 20 years was on getting stronger, was on feeling strong in my body. For the first time, I was not trying to get smaller, and that was revolutionary. And I didn't even realize it until I was driving yesterday, and I was thinking about number 9, which was helps daily tasks get easier. And I was thinking about a couple of the intakes I've had with women recently who are new to fit after 40, and their goals have been really empowering. Like they want to feel stronger in their body. They want to feel capable. They have osteopenia and want to build bone density. They want, they have all of these really empowering, beautiful goals. And I was like, this is a shift. This is new. And it was new for me. And just the last couple phases of training, I haven't been thinking about even my body comp. When I was at Orange Theory, because we had access to an InBody, I was like scanning myself every couple months. That's a whole other side of things, right? But now I'm just doing it for how I feel. And it is such freedom to do something purely from supporting a body. It is such freedom, and it feels really powerful. Like it totally changes the way I show up in the world, in my workouts, with the women I coach. It's just this beautiful thing where women have been told for so long to get smaller, to disappear, that we're not good enough unless we weigh less. Like it's crazy the amount that society has put on the shape of our bodies. And this style of training is all about building resilience and independence and getting stronger and taking up space physically by using so many weights. It just is empowering, right? I feel like that is the big shift for me. And I'm like realizing it as I'm saying it, that for a lot of years, so let's say if I started 20 years ago, for 14, 15 years, fitness was about fixing my body, which was always a problem. And then the evolution in the last 5 years has been about supporting my body and getting freaking pumped by what I can see it do. I'm so jazzed by seeing how much weight I can lift. I'm so jazzed by seeing what new skills I can build. Handstands, pull-ups, even Bulgarian split squats when I get stronger at them, right? It is exciting to get better at these things, to feel what my body is capable of versus constantly looking at it as the problem and the reason that I am not worth enough. And that, to me, is what I want for all women, especially those of us, all of us, but so many of us grew up in diet culture where that was just what we were constantly inundated with. And I think we have this unique little time where people are going, nah, the people who lived through diet culture, the people who lived through shrinking are now in perimenopause and they're feeling like garbage, right? Because their bodies have chronically dieted, have chronically exercised, and they are heading into this huge hormonal transition, underfueled, with less bone, with less muscle. Their hormones are already sort of are all over the place because they've just been chronically stressing their body. And not to mention, like, mentality wise, like, what a hard place to be when we're constantly trying to fix a vessel that we live in. It just is, to me, this one is number 11 to me is the freedom piece. Freedom of the mind, right? So if 1 through 10 are like freedom of the body, like here I am in this vessel that's able to carry me through till the day I drop, being able to do activities that I want to do, being able to go into my 70s, my 80s, my 90s with as fingers crossed, like as few medications as possible, right? Just really taking care of my system, being able to live in the houses I want to live in, be able to travel to places I want to travel, be able to play with the kids I want to play with, right? All these different things, those are for our body. Number 11 is then like, how do we hone in on living in a mindset in that body that we've prepared for ourselves? Because if we can do all those things for our body, and we can live better, and we can have daily tasks be easier, and we can take care of our bones and our heart and our muscles, but if we're still kind of in the back of our brain constantly telling ourselves we're not enough, it's still uncomfortable inside, right? So that's like that last piece of unlocking of like, I am enough. And not only am I enough, but I'm capable of pretty cool shiznat. And that is that empowering element that I feel like is so unique to strength training. Okay, my darling friends, that just about wraps this one up. 11 surprising benefits of strength training outside of just getting stronger, which in of itself, pretty darn beneficial. So run them back. 1, strength training is imperative for building and rebuilding muscle and bone, especially as we age. 2, it increases our resting metabolic rate. 3, it benefits blood sugar regulation. 4, we experience less chronic pain in general. 5, it improves brain health. 6, it improves mood and self-esteem. 7, increases our quality of life and we age with independence. 8, it reduces our fall risk. 9, helps daily tasks feel easier. 10, improves cardiovascular health. And 11, it helps us focus on empowering ourselves versus shrinking. All right, you beautiful humans, we are coming up to episode 99 next week. If I wasn't so busy with Fit After 40, we'd do something crazy for episode 100. So if you have any ideas, hit me up. I would love, love, love to hear from you. Like maybe if you have some way that this podcast has helped you, or something that you learned from it, or a story you want to share about how you've taken it into the world and implemented it, please share it with me. Maybe the 100th episode, we could do something like people's personal wins, so we can see like real life what they've gotten from making little changes in their own life in a healthy, supportive, lovely way. That's kind of fun. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Let's see if we can do it. Shoot me an email at kinsey@fitafter40.info or hit me up on Instagram, kinsey.does.the.fitness. I'm going to log off because my office is still pretty hot. We're almost out of this heat wave, but not quite. So I'm sweating. And I'm going to log off. You are amazing. Thank you so much for spending your time today and taking time to take care of your beautiful bodies and brains, because you're so a stinking worth it. Aroo!